magandang gabi sa ating lahat. Welcome to our 365 Daily Devotion Bible Characters Edition. So, ngayon ang paksa natin ay patungkol sa kwento o sa buhay ni Joseph. So, sino nga ba si Joseph? So, Joseph's life unfolds like a tapestry woven with both vibrant and dark threads. He begins as a favored son, clothed with honor and entrusted with dreams from God that pointed toward a future of leadership. Yet, those same dreams stirred jealousy and hatred in the hearts of his brothers, leading to betrayal, abandonment, and slavery. So what looked like the collapse of God's promises was actually the quiet beginning of God's greater plan. So as Joseph moves from the pit to Potiphar's house, and later from prison to the palace, one truth remains constant: God was with him and in every season. So Joseph's story reminds us that God's faithfulness is not limited to moments of success. He is just as present in suffering, waiting, and injustice. So when life feels unpredictable, Joseph's life assures us that God is always at work, shaping his purposes through every season. So sabi nga sa Genesis chapter 39 verse 21, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So sabi nga sa katuruan natin noong una, life under God is a beautiful life. So a life submitted to God is not defined by comfort but by purpose. So Joseph's life under God included favor and hardship, honor and humiliation. So even when circumstances were painful, Joseph lived under God's authority, not under his situation. So this submission allowed God to shape his character long before elevating his position. So true beauty in life comes from alignment with God's will. Joseph did not abandon his faith when life turned difficult. Instead, he continued to trust God's presence. A life under God may face storms, but it remains secure because it is anchored in God's sovereignty and faithfulness. So second is life flourishes through pain and suffering. So Joseph's suffering was not wasted. Every season and pain refined him, teaching him humility, patience, integrity, and dependence on God. So the pit stripped him of pride. Slavery trained him in responsibility. Prison deepened his faith and perseverance. God used suffering as a tool for preparation, not punishment. So spiritual growth often happens in the hidden places, just as seeds grow beneath the soil before they break through. So God develops his servants in seasons that feel unseen and unfair. Joseph's story shows that pain does not cancel God's promises. Instead, it often prepares us to carry them as well. Third is life is meant to glorify the life giver. So Joseph's rise to power was never about personal revenge or self-glory. When he finally stood before Pharaoh, he made it clear that wisdom and interpretation belong to God alone. His life testified that God is the source of every gift, every breakthrough, and every promotion. So a life that glorifies God points others to him, even in success. So Joseph used his authority to preserve lives and honor God's purposes. So when God lifts his people, it is not just to bless them, but to display his glory through them for the good of many. So application lang natin dito una, believe that challenges are simply different colors of life. So life with God includes both joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion. So Joseph's story teaches us that hardship is not a sign of God's absence, but often a sign of his deeper work. So challenges add depth and contrast to our journey of faith. So when we Learn to see trials through God's perspective. No fears gives away to trust. Every season has meaning in God's design. Instead of resisting difficult moments, we can ask God that what He is forming in us through them. Second is bloom exactly where God has planted you. So Joseph remained faithful whether he was managing a household or confined in a prison cell. So he did not wait for better conditions to honor God. He served with excellence wherever God placed him, trusting that obedience in small spaces leads to greater responsibility. Blooming where God plants us means choosing faithfulness over frustrating or frustration. So God often promotes those who are faithful in obscurity. Our present assignment, no matter how small it seems, is preparation for what God has prepared next. And lastly, no, boast in the Lord for every victory. So when Joseph has finally or was finally elevated, he did not boast in his endurance or intelligence. He gave glory to God. Every victory in his life pointed back to the faithfulness of the Lord who guided him through every season. So as believers, no, our testimony should reflect God's grace rather than our own strength. Gratitude keeps our hearts humble and reminds us that every success is a gift from the life giver. So how does Joseph's story helps us trust God when our lives go up and down? So Joseph's life reassures us that God is constant even when circumstances change. His story teaches us that delays are not denials, suffering is not abandonment, and God's promises are never forgotten. Trust grows when we remember that the same God who allowed the pit also designed the place. So let us dive deeper now. How is Joseph a shadow or type of Jesus? So Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold for silver, falsely accused, and yet later exalted to save many lives. In the same way, Jesus was rejected by his own, suffered unjustly, and was exalted by God to bring salvation to the world. So Joseph's life points forward to Christ, reminding us that God brings redemption through suffering and glory through obedience.